computer. Oh, there we go.
Oh, it's
Hi,
working.
everyone. This is Heather Lattinen. We're going to begin by organizing our file structure. I do this for the new year. Okay, so before we dive into this, let me say that there are three things that are really important to me when you are organizing your photos for the year or whenever. I do it on a yearly basis. I set up a structure and I create a new Lightroom catalog, but there are three things that are really important. Number one is that it works for you, that it makes sense to you. So if what I show you in terms of my file organization doesn't make sense to you, it does not offend me in the least if you have a different system. As long as it works for you, it makes sense and you can find things, right? If it's a mess and it's scattered, and do you ever meet one of those people where like their desk is a mess, there's stuff everywhere, and they're like, no, I know where everything's at, but it's like complete disarray. I'm not going to buy that. Okay. It needs to have some sort of order to it. As long as it makes sense to you, I'm fine with that. The second thing is it needs to remain consistent. So if you adopt a new system of organizing your photos, I would stick with it like permanently or until it stops working. So and you'll see that in a second when I share my file structure. It has never changed. It's been consistent for well over a decade, and it makes it really easy for me to find things. And the third and final thing is, do you have a backup system in place? I would recommend that you have all of your photos and your Lightroom catalogs stored on external hard drives, as internal hard drives are just more prone to failure. Not that externals can't fail, they certainly do, but internals are just a little more prone to it. So I want your photos, your catalogs on an external drive, and I want that external drive backed up somewhere else. Whether you choose to do that on another external or on an online backup system such as Backblaze or a RAID array connected to your network, is totally fine with me as long as they are backed up. And Jill makes a good point. My friend in IT, she says, make sure that you periodically check your backups to make sure that they're working and can be restored, because you are only as good as your last backup. So you definitely want to periodically check on them. Now's a good time of year. Look at last year. Is everything backed up appropriately? Okay, before I share my screen, I also want to say that my methodology for Lightroom catalogs is to create 2 new Lightroom catalogs per year. I do that for a couple of reasons. One is I separate out clients from personal. So they don't need to intermingle. I'm not usually looking for my personal stuff with clients in the mix. I just don't like that. So every year I create 2 new catalogs, one for clients, one for personal. Why do I create a new catalog every year? Someone asked me this recently, and I just do it because I needed to somehow delineate these catalogs, because my catalogs previously were very high volume. So if a Lightroom catalog gets really big, it can impede the performance. You can have performance issues. Okay, what is really big, right? Well, really big is really dependent on your system, your operating system, your random access memory, your hard drives, etc. So I can't say to you, oh, if you get over, 50,000 images, you should probably start a new catalog. That's just not how it works, because I've had catalogs that have had well over 50,000 images and they were running just fine. So I just decided, like, okay, so what do I do? Do I just create a new catalog every couple years, every 5 years, whenever I need it? And my engineering brain doesn't work that way. So while I don't technically need to create a new catalog every year for performance. I don't need to for the sake of performance. Like I could have 2 years catalog in my catalog and be fine. I just do it because I needed a point of delineation and I wanted to be consistent. So if, couple of things, if you don't have a lot of clients or you don't have a lot of personal photos and it makes sense for you to just have one catalog that has all of your photos, I don't have a problem with that if it works for you. I don't have a problem if you think you could have a catalog over the span of a couple of years. That's fine as well. It has to work for you. This just worked for me to separate it. Kim is asking if I could show her how to move a current Lightroom catalog to an external drive. Yeah, it's literally drag and drop. You just drag it in Finder or Windows Explorer from your C drive to your external drive. Now, that being said, Lightroom will most likely lose its connection. It might get confused as to where the photos are, and you might have to reconnect that, but that's not a big deal. So yeah, it's just a drag and drop type scenario. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. And you should see, can you just give me a thumbs up that you see Finder currently? Thank you, Alan. It doesn't matter, obviously, if you're using Mac or PC. Windows Explorer and Mac Finder work the exact same way. They are file management systems. I always begin with my file management. So we're not in Lightroom yet. We're not talking about catalogs. We're not looking at it. The very first thing I do at the beginning of the year is I come into my external drive. Do you see these folders? 2012 images, 2013 images, etc. You see these? I'm going to create a new folder. Guess what I'm going to name it? 2021 images. Oh, there's a surprise. 2021 images. And that's just because I like to remain consistent. I am going to open 2021 images. And just for kicks, if you want to see what this looks like, say in 2015, you'll see, not a good example, Heather. 2019, I have 2019 clients, 2019 personal. I have 2020 clients, 2020 personal inside of the images, right? Because I keep them separate. So inside of 2021 images, I am going to create a new folder called 2021 clients. And I'm going to create another new folder called 2021 personal. Again, this is just because I like to keep these separate. So now I have a place for all of my clients and I have a place for all of my personal photos. I'm going to go into my clients folder and create the structure that I use for the year. I like to separate everything by month, and I do so by creating 01_2021 for January, 02_2021 for February, etc. The reason I chose the numbers versus the letters is because I want to be able to sort them alphanumerically. And if you have Jan, Feb, March, right, that's not going to work out. So, and the reason I lead with a 001 is because there are 2 digits in, the latter months. So it had to lead with a 0 so that I can organize it alphanumerically. So you wouldn't want to put just the number 1. The 0 is important. So really quickly, let's do this because we need to. So I'm going to create these, and you can ask questions in the chat if you'd like. I'm going to create these for every month. I call this my skeleton structure because there's nothing in it. I obviously don't know what clients I'm going to have in June and July. So I'm just creating the structure ahead of time so that it is ready. And later in the year, I don't have to think. I've always said that I want to be the best brain dead photographer out there. Thinking is what slows you down. If I can eliminate thinking, I will perform faster. So there we have all of those months. There obviously no clients inside of those months yet. I'm going to show you how I do that in a moment.
Heather,
and Carrie, I'm going to, yeah, Carol.
Could you tell me real quick where you have the master folders, the 2021, the 20...
Yeah, it's just on my external hard drive at the root.
Oh, okay. So it's not on your hard drive.
Yeah.
No. Okay.
Carrie, I'm going to create a catalog for the year. One catalog for clients for the year, one catalog for personal for the year. In Lightroom, you can only have one catalog open at a time. It's a database, which means you can only search across one catalog at a time. So I'm just going to do it for the year. You probably would not want to create more catalogs than that because then you would be opening and closing catalogs all the time, right? You would be jumping all around. So that wouldn't be a good idea. Okay, so in 2021 images, I have this clients and personal. I actually want to mimic this structure in my personal files as well. But rather than sit there and retype these, I'm just going to select them all. Remember, they're empty. Copy them, go into my personal and paste them. So now I have all of the months in my clients and all of the months in my personal. The only thing that will look different moving forward is when I have a client in January, I'm going to come into January and let's say client last name is Smith, for instance. I have a client named Smith in January and I would put their photos inside of their folder. So if I had multiple clients in January, you would see the client last name inside of this folder. In my personal files, I just put everything that I photograph in January in January. It doesn't matter to me if I was at the beach, oh, Lord willing, traveling, or it was a birthday, or it was at home, or it was the chickens. It doesn't matter. It's all in January. I organize my photos in Lightroom with keywords. So it doesn't matter to me that everything from January is in January. All of my photos are in the January folder. Carrie's asking, is this accomplishing the same thing as creating folders in Lightroom? Well, I never create folders in Lightroom. I import folders from my hard drive into Lightroom. Lightroom is simply a mirror of your hard drive. Let me show you an example. I actually have Lightroom open right now. I want you to look over on the far left at my 4 terabyte WD passport drive. Do you see all of those months? You see January, oh, no February, March, no April. I didn't have clients those months, so there were no folders. But those are for the months. And if I expand a month, say September, I have open, I have client last name. I happen to shoot workshops that entire month. So that's what you're seeing there. But this was imported from my hard drive. So I didn't create any of these folders in Lightroom. I created them on my external hard drive and then I imported them into Lightroom. Lightroom just mirrors what is sitting on your hard drive. Does that make sense? Let me know if it
Could
doesn't.
you create them in Lightroom? Like, because
yes.
what I usually
but
do
why
is
would you do that? Question.
I don't know. It's just what I've been doing. I've been creating a folder in Lightroom and then importing photos like from my SD card directly into, uh-oh, I did something really wrong. Heather's leaving.
Never.
What did I do wrong?
Never. Now I'll tell you, and somebody's going to argue with me, and that's okay because I can dance. Here's why. When you put your memory, and if you watch the Lightroom course, I drove this home pretty hard. I always say, create your structure first. I don't care if it looks like mine. Create your structure. Put your card in a card reader, not from your camera either, a card reader. That's an important distinction. Yeah. Card reader, copy the photos from the card to your file structure in Windows Explorer or Mac Finder, the file structure you created, eject the card, then open Lightroom and import from your external hard drive. And you might be asking yourself, but Heather, why? Because maybe you're like a petulant toddler and you like to question everything. Okay. I don't know. People do. People will say to me, but why? I don't understand. I don't like your reason. So I'm just going to do it my way. Okay. I'm going to tell you why. I worked with a professional photographer who knew what she was doing. She'd been in business a long time. I told her not to do this. She didn't listen to me. Here's what happens. If you go to import in Lightroom from your card and you don't pay attention to the options, you could be working from your card. And the images never got copied to your drive.
That's bad news.
So here's what happened. And listen, the story I am about to tell you happened countless times with countless photographers, many of whom were veterans, professionals. Call me on the phone. Heather, none of I shot this senior session and all my images are showing that they're not there. Can you help me? Yeah, of course. So we hop on, we look and we look at her hard drive and she's like, I can't find the photos. They're like not on my external hard drive. And I'm like, oh, that's because you imported them from your card and you were working off of your SD card. And she said to me, both times, two people I'm thinking of specifically, a little indignant. Both times they said to me, oh, no, I didn't. I know not to do that. And I said, okay, where are the photos then? Well, I imported from my card, but I thought I was copying them to my hard drive. Oh, but you skipped that step. Do you know why? Because you were busy. You were overworked, overwhelmed, stressed out. You weren't paying attention and you were a brain dead photographer. Well, you better set up brain dead systems to protect you from yourself. And I told you not to import from the card. And they argue with me. Heather, but I can see the photos. I can see them. I said, I know you can see them because Lightroom is showing you a preview, but the photos are sitting on your SD card. I said, no problem. Just grab that SD card, and copy them over. She's like, I shot over it multiple times.
Yep.
And I said, oh, okay, well, run recovery software and see if you can find it, and then she couldn't. And she said, you have to help me. You have to tell me, how can I take these previews, because they're just low res, and make them into the files? And I said, you cannot do that. She said, well, you have to help me. What can I do? And I said, you have to make a phone call and you have to reshoot a session. This was a very high-end photographer.
If you delete something from your SD card, does it end up in the recycle bin on your computer?
No.
Okay.
Because it's not going to copy it over. Now, if you delete something from your SD card and you run recovery software in a timely fashion, you may be able to recover it. I really cannot stress this enough. Do not import from your SD card. Listen, there is a way to do it so that it works properly. Like there's a method to do it. The problem is, even if I teach you that method, somebody's going to screw it up and they're going to lose their images. And I don't know why, but you people like to blame me. Like, but Heather, you told me. No. I did not tell you to copy no. I want you to develop the structure on your hard drive. I want you to copy photos from your SD card or CF card or your XQD card or your C3PO card. I don't care. From your card to your external hard drive. I then want you to eject that card prior to opening Lightroom. When you open Lightroom and import, you import directly from the location on your external hard drive where those photos will live forever.
Okay.
Hallelujah. Wow, that got me going for sure. Carrie.
Hey, so Heather.
Yeah,
Heather,
Al. Yeah.
One of the things that I know that people do is when they are in Lightroom and they have their card connected, even though they may have imported it from into their external hard drive, if they open up Lightroom, Lightroom will see the card.
That's right.
And then you think you're working off of, when you do your import, it's going to come up with the import screen. You think you're going to be importing from your external hard drive. Then you go in and make some changes to your edits. And then you save everything. And eventually you say, oh, hey, I forgot to take my card out.
Right.
Take the card out, and guess what? You lost all your edits.
I've seen people do that as well.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right, which is why the critical path is to eject that card before opening Lightroom. I've almost done it. Like I left a card in the reader and I open Lightroom and I go to import, because here's what happens. Lightroom, like Al said, recognizes your card first. It comes up and you're like, oh, there's my photos. And you just hit import real quick because you're not paying attention. Really, really, really important. There's a lot of things, like, I don't care how you do it. I don't really care how you organize your files on your hard drive, as long as it makes sense to you, it's consistent, it's backed up. But this, no. Eject that card before importing into Lightroom. Whew. Okay, good. Thank you, Carrie. That's a good question, because if you're thinking it, I promise you there are probably several other people thinking the same thing. That's why you don't do it. And these photographers all mad at me saying, you have to fix it. Get me the images. I can't call the client. I can't reshoot. You have to, because you imported from your card, because you didn't understand the importance of ejecting that card prior to opening Lightroom. And you didn't understand the importance of copying those files into a predefined structure, one that makes sense, is consistent, and is backed up. Check. Roger that. Okay. So we're good there. Now, as you look at my Lightroom structure here for the previous year, it makes sense. You see exactly what you see on my hard drive, right? I'm just importing from my hard drive because the next thing we're going to do is create new catalogs for this year for both personal and clients. So are there any questions prior to me doing that? You've established the structure on your hard drive, right? So either in Finder or Windows Explorer, you have your 2021 images, you have your clients with the months, you have your personal with the months. You're good. Check. Okay. So back over to Lightroom. It's
Heather?
time. Yeah. Did somebody have something?
Yeah, it's me, Rebecca.
Oh, hi.
So are you not using collections in any way?
I do use collections. I do.
Okay.
I use collections to create black and white collections. So I deliver to my clients everything in both color and black and white. And I use collections to do that. I use virtual copies and collections. I've also used collections for different things like maybe a website update, and I'm like throwing images into a collection that I might want to use. But I also use numbers as well as color coding to filter those and create collections. Yeah, I do use collections.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, of course. Okay. So inside of Lightroom, file, new catalog. The reason I decided to do this training, especially live, was to answer your questions, but also because if this is something that you only do once per year, then of course you're not going to, I mean, it's hard to remember how to do it, right? Like, where did I do that? Or what was the order? Or how did I do it? So it's not very often that we go up to the file menu and we say file new catalog. It's once per year. That's how often it is for me. File new catalog. So Lightroom is going to open a dialog box and it's going to ask me, essentially it's asking me two questions here. What do you want to name it and where do you want to put it? So I am going to navigate to my external hard drive and I'm going to create my client catalog first. I'm navigating to my external hard drive. I am selecting 2021 images. I'm going inside of that folder because I am creating my client catalog. I am going to put it in my 2021 clients folder alongside of all of its friends, the images. My images and my catalogs live in harmony together in the same folder. And I do that just because I like to keep everything neat and together. Many of you, I suspect, are saving your Lightroom catalogs on your C drive, your internal operating system drive under your name. And it's like, you don't even know where it's at, right? Listen, it's okay. How many people don't know where their Lightroom catalog is currently at? It's okay. We're going to make sure we put it moving forward in a place where we can find it. So I'm inside of 2021 clients, and I am going to name this 2021 client catalog. You guys, this is not the time to be creative like you are with your presets and your frou ha ha dreamy light airy. Like you need to be abundantly clear with your naming so that it makes sense to you. So I named this 2021 client catalog. It is sitting inside of clients, so I know where it is. Okay, I'm going to click create. We're going to do this again with our personal. So relax if you want to see it again. Create. And it's going to ask me, now I have this set up in my preferences to ask me to back up this current catalog. Well, I didn't do any work today on this catalog, so I'm just going to skip this backup. If I had done work, I would absolutely back it up. That's just a good habit to get into. So Lightroom's going to close, hands off here for a second, and it's going to reopen with a new empty blank catalog. 2021 client catalog. And this catalog, of course, because it's brand new, is going to be empty. There are obviously no photos because I have not imported anything yet. So you don't see photos. You don't see any folders on the left. You don't see the file structure. There's nothing in here until we import. But there's a really important note I want to make. I get an SOS email about Lightroom in this particular issue, maybe once a week, maybe every other week, where people say, Heather, I can't see any of my presets in Lightroom. My presets are gone. I can't even import them. I don't even know where my presets are. They're gone. I don't in there, there's always a lot of arm waving, like, where are my presets? You can't see presets when there are no photos, you guys. There has to be a photo inside of Lightroom. I promise you, all of your presets are here. I'm gonna prove it to you. Why don't we, just for fun, let me throw an image into this Smith folder. Let me go to my desktop. I have these 2 photos of my daughter. I'll just put these in here. And just so I can have something to import, I am going to go back to my library and choose import. And then Lightroom is going to ask me, where would you like to import from? And I'm going to say 2021 images, clients. And rather than just pick Smith on this first import, I'm going to pick actually January and include the subfolders. And the reason is because I want to be able to see 01_2021 in my folder path here on the left. You see this? 01_2021 and then Smith underneath of it. If you don't do it that way and you just import Smith, you will not see 01_2021. And by the end of the year, your catalog will be a giant lump of names looking like there's no delineation when there actually is. You just didn't bring in the parent folder. But you only have to do that on the first import of the month. So if I have another new
you repeat
client in
that?
January, say Jones, well, then I would just import Jones. I don't have to import 01_2021 again because it's already in here. It's just showing the parent folder. You could also, if you've already imported some clients and you're like, oh, I wish it looked that way and I didn't, you can right click and say show parent folder. I can't see that here in my selection because it's already here. Actually, wait, I could do this. See this show parent folder? I right clicked and you can say show parent folder and then it will show you the one above it. And that's just a matter of organization. It doesn't impact anything per se. It's just how you see it. Okay. So now if I go to my develop module, look at the preset panel. A minute ago, it was empty. There was nothing there. And you're like, where are my presets? I lost everything. No, you didn't. Just bring a photo in and then all of your presets will be there. Okay, let's do it one more time. Yes? I now have my 2021 client catalog ready to go. File, new catalog. This time I need to go to my 2021 images, personal, and I'm going to name this 2021 personal catalog. And then say create. Again, Lightroom is going to close that catalog. It can only have one open at a time, and then it will reopen this personal catalog. Now, if we jump over to Finder again, just to take a look at what this looks like, we have our 2021 images. If we go into clients, see all the months we created, but now we have a folder called 2021 client catalog. Lightroom created that. It created that for us. And it just has our catalog in it. There it is. And your backups will be located here. So if I back up this catalog, Lightroom will automatically create a folder right here called backups. And you periodically want to look at that folder because you only need to keep the most recent. And Lightroom will keep all of them. It doesn't automatically purge. I wish it did. The reason I mentioned that is because if you back up your catalog quite often, say during your busy season, which I do, you could easily have 10 to 20 backups in your backup folder, and they take up a tremendous amount of space as the catalog gets bigger. And you only need the most recent. So I would go back. Oh, you want to do that? Let's take a look-see at an older, I don't know if I've done it lately. 2020 images. Let me go into my clients. There's my catalog. Here's my backup folder. You see this? There's all my recent backups. I only need the most recent, and Lightroom creates them by date. So you can see October, November. I only need this November one. So I can just click these and delete them and just keep that most recent one. And the reason is, okay, it doesn't take up that much space. That catalog isn't big, 26 meg. But if you have, I've had catalogs get way bigger than that. And if you have 20 of them, they just take up a lot of unnecessary space. So make sure you are periodically checking your backups folder. And remember that when you back up your catalog, you are backing up your work, not your images. Your images need to be backed up separately through a different method. You're just backing up your work, not your photos. So, okay, back over to, let's go back into 2021. Look at this personal. We have all of our months and we have this folder, 2021 catalog. There's the catalog. Let me talk just for a minute about my preferences in Lightroom. Because I'm working in multiple catalogs and because I teach, I often go back to older catalogs to like look for some photos or something I need. I set up my preferences, which you can access by pressing Command, comma on the Mac, Control, comma on the PC. I set up my preferences to prompt me when starting Lightroom as to what catalog opens. If you've been only working in the default catalog that Lightroom created for you originally, then what you have selected is load most recent catalog. If you only have one catalog, this makes sense. If you have more than one catalog, you probably want to select prompt me when starting Lightroom. So when I launch Lightroom, it asks me, well, first it says, hi, Heather, good morning. What catalog would you like to open today? At least that's how I imagine it speaks to me. And then I just drop down and I click on whatever I'm working on today, whether that's clients or personal. I grab the catalog that I'm working on. So I have Lightroom ask me when it opens. While we're here, just real quick, we've talked about this a lot of times, but it's worth repeating because not everybody sees everything. That's fine. If you go into your performance tab, I would recommend, if you are having any issues with Lightroom being like slow or lagging, that you turn the graphics processor to off. So this was like maybe 3 years-ish ago. Adobe introduced this graphics acceleration based on your graphics card, which in theory was a great idea. It was meant to speed up Lightroom, but mostly all it did was slow it down. I'm not saying this is for everyone, but I just noticed for everyone I work with, including myself, that I have a newer machine. I have a good graphics card. I'm sure you do as well. It's compatible. In theory, it should work, but it just slows it down. So I have this set to off. That's if you're having issues. If Lightroom is flying, then don't mess with it, right? If it's working, that's great. And lastly, let's talk about, well, there's a couple of things now that I'm thinking about it. sRGB is your color space. I would recommend that. If you're having trouble with any local adjustment presets, you would come into the presets panel, show all other Lightroom presets. It would take you to the specific folder where local adjustment presets are housed, or other, because people get a little bit confused by this. They think that the only thing there are these develop module presets, and Lightroom has a million presets for a lot of different things. So don't believe me. Go to show on, these are all the presets that Lightroom has. So you see import presets and layout templates and FTP presets and filter presets and local adjustment presets. The local adjustment presets are the things that we use. People get a little bit confused by this when importing presets because there's develop presets. Those are global, puts it on the whole image. And then we have local adjustment presets that are used for things like the adjustment brush, the radial filter, etc. And those are here. But that's if you need to get there, those are located in your preferences. And let me see if there's anything else we should. Interface is just, do you like it gray? Do you like it light gray, white, etc.? Yeah, you know, one last thing. Under the performance tab, let's go to catalog settings and go to general and make sure that your backup is set to something that makes sense for you based on your workflow. What do I mean by that? Well, okay, it should be at the minimum once a week when exiting Lightroom, it would ask you, you know, do you want to back up this catalog? But during my busy season, when I was photographing 30 weddings a year, and that means I was editing a wedding every week, thousands and thousands and thousands of images, I was logging a lot of hours in Lightroom. I had mine set to every time Lightroom exits. Every time it exits, it would ask me, do you want to back this up? That doesn't mean you have to. You don't have to back. If you didn't do any work, don't back it up. But if you worked for 8 hours straight culling 3,000 images, I think it might be a good idea to back it up, don't you? And if you think, okay, I see your skepticism because I'm like a prophet. I can see you sitting there like, oh, well, I mean, was you backing up your work? It's fine. Nothing's ever happened. Well, one summer when I had weddings back to back to back, I never shut down my machine. My iMac just stays running, right? So I hadn't closed Lightroom and something happened and the catalog became corrupt. And because I never exited Lightroom, I didn't have a backup for 2 weeks. I lost 2 weeks worth of wedding work, not photos, okay? Work. 2 weeks worth of work when I literally did not have time to use the restroom. So it was not a good time to lose 2 weeks. So of course there were tears. Of course, I called IT and I said, fix IT's my husband. I said, fix it, you know, and he said, well, why didn't you back it up recently? And I said, I never close it. Well, guess what I got into the habit of doing the day after that happened? Every single time I was working in Lightroom, I would close it at the end of the day. It would prompt me, do you want to back up? And I would say, yes. And that never happened again. That's usually what happens from disasters, right? It happens once and hopefully it never happens again. Diane is asking for clarification. So on her PC, Lightroom will automatically put my Lightroom catalog backup on my external drive, correct? Lightroom will put your backup wherever the original catalog is living. If your original catalog is on your external hard drive, your backups will be on your external hard drive. If your Lightroom catalog is stored on your C drive, that's where your backups, it creates it automatically as a subfolder inside of the root for the file that was originally created. Yeah, you can change where you want your backup to be, right? Karen is saying. I like everything organized, nice and neat, tucked in together. No, Melissa, Photoshop is not even remotely the same. So Photoshop is more like a regular application where you have to save things. You know, Lightroom, you don't have to save things because Lightroom is a database that's constantly writing information. Photoshop is like any other software where you work and you save, you know, Command S, Control S to save. Okay, Alan is asking about traveling with your catalogs. So if you want to take something on the road. So what Lightroom recommends is there's a process for creating or generating smart previews. So smart previews means that, like, say you have your laptop and you're normally connected to your external hard drive, but you don't want to take your external hard drive with you. Is that an accurate scenario? That's like how it would go. Yeah. So you can tell Lightroom to generate smart previews. You can disconnect your external hard drive, take your laptop on your trip. You can work. When you come home, you plug that external back in, and Lightroom finds its photos and everything, and all your work is there. You're not actually taking the photos with you, though. You understand, right? The photos are staying at home, which is probably good. They're safe there. But what you're seeing in Lightroom is a preview, which means some functionality might be limited. Like, I'm not sure how, if you had smart previews, I'm not sure that you could like export and take that photo through to completion, because you don't actually have the original file with you. You just have the smart preview. So you can do your work, but you wouldn't be able to like export a high resolution version and upload it for print, for instance. Yeah, yes, Rebecca, excellent point. Sorry, I sort of skipped over that. If you are traveling and you want to generate these smart previews, you're going to have to put this catalog on your internal drive, the catalog file, because it's normally sitting on the external drive. Okay, I got to tell you, I'm a little bit freakish about this. I don't like to travel with my work, but I understand. I mean, obviously there are travel photographers, there are people who do landscapes, there are people, so I appreciate the need for it. If it were me, Al, I think what I would do is, I think I would take my external hard drive. I would just make sure that I had appropriate gear to transport it, carry it, and protect it. I've seen my friends unplug their external hard drives and throw them at the bottom of their camera bag, and I want to die, right? So if you had a case that protected your hard drive and your computer, and you were like, because like travel's your thing and you're on the road, like I think I would just take it with me, but I would make sure it was backed up, you know, like online, maybe Backblaze, or backed up at home on another drive. I tend to think through all the different scenarios, usually the worst case ones, like what would happen if I screwed something up, I lost this drive, I dropped this drive. Well, I have it all backed up, but I could still work on it. Yeah, Kim, you could have a travel drive that you use. Christina, I'm with you. My hard drive is my child. I am
Hey,
very,
Heather.
I would buckle that sucker in the seatbelt. Alan, sorry, I keep interrupting somebody. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Heather, I was
Yeah.
just going to point out, this is Jill, that
Yes.
this is the case for having an SSD drive.
Yes,
So
for sure.
SSDs come big enough now that you could just grab it and go, and that's not a big deal.
Yeah, 100%. SSD drive, for anybody who's wondering, the difference between a traditional hard drive is a traditional hard drive has moving parts. SSD drives do not. They're like your SD card. They have no moving parts, which makes them less prone to failure, specifically mechanical failure, because there's no mechanics. So there's nothing spinning in there, right? There's no magnets, nothing is, okay, don't quote me on the magnets. I mean, there's no spinning drive. Somebody will say, oh, there's a magnet. Okay, I don't know. What I'm saying is there are no moving, right? The platters can't crash because there are no moving parts. Previews take up space, but usually in terms of kilobytes versus a raw file taking up, you know, gigabytes, megabytes and gigabytes. So it's a space issue. Previews are very, very slim, small, quick, fast. That's why we use them. So no, they're very small, measured in K, not MB or GB. So that's the advantage of doing that, is the space. Oh yeah, I missed some of these questions.
Heather,
Yes.
can I at some point see what your import screen
Oh,
looks like?
sure. Yeah. Yeah. So Brittany is asking, no, sorry, Bethany, sorry, is asking if SSD drives are better than traditional drives. Well, in theory, yes. Yes, no moving parts. That's why they're more expensive. So if you go to look for like a Western Digital 4 terabyte drive right now, a traditional drive, they are so, so cheap. An SSD drive will be more expensive, but in theory, worth it, right? Because they're faster. Yes. Yeah. Faster, less prone to failure, no moving parts. Good. All good things. Reminds me of like the switch to mirrorless cameras. Like these are good innovations, and they're quiet. Yeah, they're like those electric cars that they're going to run you over because you can't hear them coming. Okay, import. Let's go to the import dialog box. So the way I work with my imports, Carol, is the first thing I do is find what I want to import on my external hard drive, right? So in the previous case with Ella's photos, I went into, it's not going to, oh, maybe it will let me. I'm in a different catalog. I go find the folder on my external hard drive that I want to import. That's the first step on the left side of the screen. Careful, make sure your card was ejected and you're not seeing photos on your card because you left it plugged in. Okay, this is on my external drive. I see that. There's the photos. Then I always look at the top to make sure I have mine set to add to catalog without moving them. Okay, there are arguments, valid ones, for why people use the copy as DNG, the copy and the move, because they're moving files around. I just don't, this is me personally, you can do whatever you want. I don't like Lightroom handling my file management. I like to handle my file management so that I know where everything is and I'm consistent. So I add these to the catalog without moving them because I've already put them on my hard drive where I want them to live. So I don't want Lightroom to move them. I don't want Lightroom to copy them. Now the copy is DNG. That's a digital negative format. That's a non-proprietary raw file. Raw files are proprietary to the manufacturer. So for instance, Canon operates with CR2 files. Nikon operates with .nef files. They are only recognizable by those camera manufacturers. The argument that Adobe made for copying these as DNGs was that ultimately, if you had really, really, really old raw files from a really, really old camera, that at some point a piece of software would not recognize it because they were so different than they are now. So if you copied, say, a CR2 file over to a DNG, it's a non-proprietary raw file, which can be read by any raw converter. Okay, so how does this play out? What does this all mean? Well, I have CR2 files from 2003. I actually should try to import them and see if I'm quite certain Lightroom can still read them. So that's been a lot of years ago, 17, almost 18 years ago. I have raw files that can still be imported. So the issue wasn't like, oh, it can't read them. But this comes into play, not the DNG per se, but if you get a new camera, brand new camera, like just released camera, and you shoot in RAW and you go into Lightroom or Photoshop or Camera Raw, it will not be able to import those raw files until your camera manufacturer has released the update to Adobe to install in the software so that it can recognize the files. Imagine my surprise, or anybody else's, when you get a brand new, wait for it, Canon 20D, circa 2004, Canon 20D. I shoot it in RAW. I shoot an entire wedding in RAW. I bring it home. No, it's beyond 2004. Lightroom didn't exist till 2006. So it must have been a newer camera model. It was 2006 or 7. I shot an entire wedding in RAW. Lightroom would not import it. Couldn't recognize the files. You guys, I flipped my lid. I was like, oh, I shot this whole wedding in RAW and nothing can read it. And it's because I had just bought a brand new camera that was released and Canon had not yet released the update to Adobe so that Adobe could put it into their software to read the file. Those are proprietary to the manufacturer. Sometimes Canon, Nikon will release that update to Adobe within a couple of days of the release, like super timely. Other times, I've seen it take weeks, close to months, which means if you shot a client on a brand new camera that was just released in RAW, you wouldn't be able to edit the photos until you had the update. So that's what that means, that they are proprietary. DNG is a non-proprietary format. If you want to be a freak and copy your files, your NEF or your CRT files as DNG so that you have a Canon version and a DNG version, you may do that, but I think you're wasting space and money. I don't see where that would, I mean, I haven't seen that play out. Rebecca's asking, what software do they expect you to use? Well, either they release their little rinky dink software that nobody ever touches, or you wait. So what I recommend doing is if you buy a brand new camera that was just released, like, you understand it's only when a camera's released. It's not just because you bought a brand new camera. It's because you bought it right when it was released. I recommend shooting in RAW and JPEG when you're in that period, because you could work on the JPEGs, but you could have the RAWs to go back to when they released the update. Oh, okay. Karen has a Pentax that allows her to set her RAW format to DNG in camera. I don't hate that. I don't hate that because that's not proprietary. Okay. So at the top, all of that to say, wow, long-winded answer. I have add to catalog without moving. And then over on the right, I build standard previews. I don't build one-to-one previews. In fact, because previews take up space, not a ton, but one-to-one previews are bigger than standard previews. They take up more space on your hard drive. I only generate one-to-one previews. I generate them on the fly, meaning when I zoom in to check for focus, a one-to-one preview is automatically generated. The only time I generate one-to-one previews ahead of time is when I shoot weddings and I have a series of images using my macro lens of the rings. I'll select all of those images and I'll generate one-to-one previews because I'm always zooming on those to check for focus. Other than that, one-to-one previews for me are generated on the fly only. So they're not generated because I don't always have to zoom in to check for focus on every image. But on the ones I do, it will generate. I generate standard ahead of time because it will make things load a little bit faster when you go to work. And the rest of this is just default. I do have my metadata, my Flourish.Academy metadata, which is just my name, copyright, that kind of information embedded into the file. You can create a new preset with that and play around. And then I just click import. Any questions on this dialog box?
Yes.
Yes. What is your question, Carol?
Okay. So from your card reader, you're taking the images from the card and you're importing them to your hard drive. You're adding them to your I'm sorry. You're adding it to your external hard drive.
I'm copying them.
You're copying them to your external.
Yep. Yep. So let me step it out for you. So if you want to write this down, let's do it in order. Number
Yes.
1, copy images from card to external hard drive in predetermined location. You've already created the location, right? We did that today. All you have to do is create client last names, when you have clients. So number 1 is to copy the photos from the card to the external hard drive, predetermined location. Number 2, eject the card. Don't skip it. Listen, if you call me crying, somebody will. There's always tears. Okay. No. Eject the card. Number 3, open Lightroom and import from the external hard drive. If I joke, I'm actually pretty serious about it. When I say I want to be the best brain dead photographer, what I mean is I do things consistently and repetitively so that I don't have to think, so that I don't make mistakes. It's just an effort to protect me from myself. because you're going to get busy. You're going to get stressed out. You're going to be on the phone importing photos and you're trying to do 10 things at once and you're not focusing, you're not paying attention. I just want to eliminate any issues that I might run into if I'm not paying attention. So I make it foolproof. So I don't have to think. Okay, I'm such a freak. I admit this. Oh, so crazy. Because in my mind, I'm like, if I can shave a couple of seconds off of every task repeatedly, over the years, those seconds will add up and compound. So I'm saving exponential amounts of time. This is why I own time, by the way. Watch the goal setting course. I talk about how I own time. If I've been doing this structure, and I have, for nearly 17 years. And okay, we have to subtract out the time for Lightroom. The structure's always been the same. Lightroom came on the scene in beta version in 2006. Actually, I downloaded alpha in 2006. Did you know that when they released alpha, brand new software, nobody had ever seen it before. It was free because nobody knew how to use it. And everybody's like, what do we do with this? Nobody had a clue. There were no tutorials. And at the end of 2006 into 2007, they released the beta version, which was then you had to buy. And okay, we got using it. The point is, if I've been doing it the same way for that number of years, it's pretty rare I'm not saying I don't ever make a mistake, but it's pretty rare for me to make a mistake in these areas because it has never changed. And I operate really, really quickly. Things move very fast for me. If I can figure out a way to automate it or speed something up, I always do, because then I want to eliminate the thinking. And of course I want to be as efficient as possible. I am admittedly not the most creative person in terms of photography. I'm absolutely not the most artistic, but this is where my engineering brain and my systematic process approach really pays off, because I can edit like lightning. Everything. And when you develop your editing style, so let's take this one step further. After you experiment with different editing techniques and you develop your own style, you'll get really, really fast at editing. And this does not compromise the quality. I'm not talking about getting faster and delivering crap images. I'm talking about delivering better images in a faster time frame, which means, when I edited my first wedding, I don't know, it probably took me months to do it. Really? Weeks, months? I can now edit a wedding, 3,000 plus images, start to finish in 8 hours. I can edit any type of portrait, senior, pet session in an hour with full retouch. And that's because I am so painfully consistent. That doesn't mean I don't experiment with different things periodically. Thank you, Christina. Yes. My degree is mechanical engineering, because that's how I just see things that way. Now, funny thing, I started out as a chemical engineer, but I was failing chemistry. So I went to my counselor and I said I was failing organic chemistry specifically. And if you've ever taken it, then you know. And I went to my counselor and I said, hey, I'm just curious, what kind of engineer could I be that doesn't require any more chemistry than that which I've already taken? And I can't remember, he or she went down the list and was like, oh, you could be mechanical, electrical. And I was like, mechanical. This sounds like me. I said, I can see mechanics, right? Like with my eyes. Yeah, you can see. Okay, then that's me. Because those like nucleuses and stuff I couldn't see. That was beyond me. Okay. Questions. Let me stop the share and see you. What are your thoughts or questions? I want you to feel confident in your organization. I want you to feel like you have a system that works for you. If my client personal monthly breakdown does not work for you, and you have your own system that you feel it is working and is pretty good, and you want to run it by me, tag me in a post and let me know. I'd be happy to take a look at it. I think as long as it makes sense to you, I'm okay with that. If it makes sense and it's consistent. I think that it needs to be neat and tidy though, so that it's easy for you to find what you're looking for. Oh, I see you, Christina. Hi. I didn't see you until now. You were like down. Hi. It's good to see
Can I
you.
raise a concern?
Yes.
So the thing that terrifies me, because I've not been doing it your way, because I didn't really understand it, say, a year prior. So I just kept continuing doing it the way I was doing it, which was importing and putting it on my hard drive with a copy to my external hard drive. The thing that terrifies me is that switching this, is it going to make it difficult for me to find all the images that I did the opposite way last year?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's
But I'm working on a book and I want it to be as seamless as possible. And I don't want all of a sudden be going, oh my God.
right. And I don't want you to hate me. So that's a good point, Carol. Okay. The only difference I see is that you're doing the copy from the card to your drive. Listen, if it's working for you and you understand my warning about doing that and you understand how it works, if you choose to continue that way, I'm okay with that, right? Like if you have it down and you've not had any trouble with it and you've been copying using Lightroom, you've been copying from people do this, people do it and they do it successfully. I just want to make sure you understand the consequences if you're not paying attention or you screw something up. That's all. That's, like, it's like a disclaimer. Like, here's a disclaimer. This could happen. But if you feel confident in the way you've been doing it, yeah, you probably shouldn't change.
But I don't want to, I have a brand new iMac and I don't want to bog it down in a year,
Or are you saving anything on your iMac hard drive at all?
Yes, all the images are coming from the card reader to my hard drive with a copy to my external hard drive.
Oh, okay. So you're using your iMac as like a working, like that's where you're working, but you have your backup on your external. Okay. I got to say, I don't love that. I don't love that you're working from your iMac hard drive. I would rather you have a second external drive. I actually have, over the years, I've changed a little bit, but on my hard drive structure, I've had like a working hard drive, like where I'm like doing all of the work, right? And then a backup hard drive or a backup system that the images go to. I can't, I can't support anybody saving photos to their internal hard drive operating system, C or D drive, or on the Mac, it's the Mac OS. I just can't support it because they're just prone to failure and corruption more so than an external drive. So I would like you to get those off of I don't care if your iMac's brand new. The thing is, when I buy a new machine, iMac, MacBook Pro, whatever, I don't even really care how big the hard drive is because I know that no files are ever going to be on that machine. Like I'll just take whatever. What matters to me is RAM. Random access memory matters because I need things to be speedy. But in terms of like the storage space, whatever they have now, 1, 2 terabytes, etc., like that's plenty because I'm using everything externally. You have them backed up. That makes me happy. But working from your hard drive is risky. If you understand those risks and you decide to proceed, then that's fine. It's risk reward,
So if I switch to the way that you've laid out today, by creating a new catalog, it'll just be the 2020 or the 2021 catalog is going to be on my external hard drive when everything prior was on my internal hard drive.
Correct.
So I'll be able to toggle between those catalogs.
Oh, for sure. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll still be easily able to access the catalogs. Yeah, they're just in different locations.
Okay. I will try it.
Okay. And listen, whenever you're going to do something like this, it's really important to like focus. Like sit down and think about what you want your file structure to look like, what makes sense for you. Don't try to do 10 things at once while you're moving files around and working in Lightroom. Like pay attention. I think we all have a little bit of adult onset ADD based on I blame social media, you know, right? Just everything is distracting us. Like just sit. I think if people would just like pay attention and think, like, where are my photos? Where do they live? Where does my catalog live? Is it backed up? And you know the funny thing, Carol, you know what people will say to me all the time? They're like, oh, I'm just, you know, they maybe weren't into computers or don't consider themselves technically adept. And they'll say, it's just so hard for me. I just don't understand it. I'm not techie. I'm not techie. I'm not techie. To which I reply, really? Because at some point you picked up that big fancy camera and figured out how to use it. But you can't figure out how to move files in Finder or on Windows Explorer. That scares you. But that D850, you'll shoot that all day long. I'm just not buying it. You know, here's the thing about tech. Maybe you don't like it. Maybe it's not your favorite thing in the world to do. That's fair. That's fair. But it's not because you don't know how, because you can learn it. You learned how to use your camera. You can learn how to move files. Okay, Alyssa is asking.
I think the fear is that it's not something that we do every day,
Yes.
like you said. And so it's hard to remember where it's at and how you did it before.
Yes.
So that when you're faced with a problem,
Right.
it's like, I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah, I know, but listen, I'm here for you. Just ask my friend Diana. She's had multiple hard drive emergencies and she can't remember or doesn't know what happened. And she wasn't at the time very techie. She is now, aren't you, Diana? But we'd hop on a Zoom, you know, and she'd say, I don't know what happened. And she gets confused and you're not alone. You have me. I'd help you. So you're fine. You're fine. Definitely pay attention, right? But don't feel like if something gets screwed up, you have to figure it out by yourself. That's what I'm here for. I'm happy to help you with that. Okay. Alyssa is asking, oh gosh, it moved. I've accidentally saved a few photos to my computer. If I move them now, will I still be able to find them in Lightroom? So when you move photos on your hard drive, and or you rename a folder or rename files on your hard drive, not in Lightroom, Lightroom will not be able to find them because it's missing that connection. It finds them based on the path, where they're located, and the name. So if either of those things change, the path or the name or the hard drive or the folder, then Lightroom will give you and it's now an exclamation point. It used to be a question mark, and it will say missing file, can't find file. You can click that exclamation point and find missing file by navigating to the place where you know the photo is. That's one way to do it, to reconnect it if it's already happened. But if it hasn't happened and you really need to move files around or change something, this is the one instance, the one time I would do it from within Lightroom. Because if you move a photo or a folder from within Lightroom, it's obviously still maintaining the connection because it's the one doing it. If you move a photo or a folder on your external hard drive and you don't tell Lightroom, it won't be able to find them. The goal is to not do this. Obviously, it's exceedingly rare for me to have to move photos or folders because why? The structure's already been determined. It's predetermined. Everything's in its place. It doesn't change. So it's really, really rare. But if it does happen to you, you can move photos. Diana and I have actually done this. She had some hard drive issues a couple of months ago, and we moved photos and folders from within Lightroom. So Lightroom was doing the moving on the external hard drive versus you doing it on the external hard drive and Lightroom getting confused. Because remember, your photos aren't in Lightroom. It's just a preview. It's just a link to your photos. Your photos are on your hard drive. That's where they live. Lightroom is just showing you a preview of those photos. Oh, you're welcome. She said thanks. Okay, hopefully that helped. Okay.
I Can I ask a couple quick questions?
Yes.
This is scary. Okay. Maybe you said this, but I just want to clarify. When I'm in Lightroom in my library, is it only going to show me the folders that actually have images in it?
That you've imported. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Second, so you were talking about copying your images from your SD card to your external hard drive and then ejecting your card. At what point do you delete the images from your card?
That is a great question. Thank you for asking. I
You're
remove,
welcome.
that is a really good question. I do not format or reuse that card until that session has been delivered to the client. And or if it's personal, I don't reuse that card until I know it's adequately backed up.
Okay.
So,
And do you format it in between each?
absolutely 100% yes. Very important.
All right.
And here's why. Here's why. Every time that card, I have one.
How many cards do you have?
I mean, I don't have a ton. I have a bunch of 64 gig, you know? This one, however, has a little W written on it because it went through the washing machine. So I only use this one for personal, and I've used it for years. And yeah, and it's cheap now, so who cares? Okay, 64 gig. I don't know. Somebody look up a price on like. I really am a huge fan of the ProMaster Rugged 64 gig from YM Camera.
Okay.
I actually have, I don't want to say this publicly out loud because somebody will say that's not true. I have this weird suspicion about cards bigger than 64 gig. Okay, whatever. I do not have any confirmation. I just have some thoughts about higher corruption rates. Okay, and XQD cards are for different cameras. Okay, whatever. So anyway, this card goes into my camera. The minute it goes into my camera, it gets formatted in camera. The reason is this. Every time it goes from camera to computer, your computer and your camera write hidden files, system files onto the card, files that you don't see. Over time, if those hidden files are not removed, they will corrupt one another. Ultimately. Okay, when? I don't know. I mean, it could be your next shoot. It could never happen. But in order to prevent that, I am formatting in my camera that this card is going to be, and this is another important point. I have multiple camera bodies. Certainly cards go between camera bodies, but if maybe I used this, actually I did. I used this in my Fuji X-T3 recently. If I put this in my Nikon D750 tomorrow for a client, I would just format it for the Nikon in the Nikon. That's important because it's getting rid of all of those hidden files. Because ultimately you go back and forth with cards. I've seen it happen. There could be corruption. Okay. So let's talk about weddings because that to me is like the one thing you cannot screw up. If you shot a family session or a pet session and something happened and you'd overwritten your card, you could reshoot. All right. I cannot reshoot a wedding. So it's the ultimate, this is why I don't sleep at night. I mean, catastrophe, right? So what I would do is I'd come home from the wedding. These cards would be copied to my external hard drive and backed up. So by the time I went to bed, they were in 3 locations, one of which was non-electrical, the card itself. So they're on the cards and they're on 2 external backups. And meanwhile, they're being backed up to the cloud as well so that they can go there. Okay. I edit the wedding within the week. I tell my clients they will receive their images within 4 to 6 weeks. Always deliver on the 1-month anniversary with a card, surprise, happy 1-month anniversary. Okay. But I just said, I won't reuse this until I've delivered to the client. Well, I finished the wedding within a week. I have another wedding this weekend. I just make sure that those photos back in the day, Carrie, that we burned them to CDs and DVDs. Okay. Now we put them on USBs or whatever. I would do that. So I would have the client package completely ready to go out the door within a week. Because of that, to me, that's like they're done, and they're not only burned or on a USB drive ready to go out the door, but they're also backed up in triplicate on my system. So at that point, I would take the card, put it into my camera, format it, and shoot it for the next wedding. In terms of portrait sessions, the turnaround's just a little bit faster. You know, it's always within a couple of weeks. But again, I could have these uploaded to Pixieset or on a USB drive. And once I have them ready for client delivery, at that point, personally, I feel comfortable reusing the card.
So when you format, that deletes the images that are on there. It's not 2 steps.
Okay. In theory, no, it doesn't delete. It marks them for deletion.
Okay.
It tells the camera this space is available, you can use it. Now, the reason that's important,
Okay.
yeah, this is important to note. Nothing's ever gone until it's written over.
Should
So-
you delete them? Like,
No.
if I put that in my computer, would I see them?
No, you wouldn't see them, but they would be there. This is important. Here's why. I
Okay.
was shooting a wedding one time,
Okay.
circa 2006, beautiful wedding. I'm at the bride's house. I'm photographing. All of a sudden, I get a card error. And this is before the days of dual card slots. You guys know that that's a recent invention, right? That did not always exist. So I get a card error and I'm like, I have all of our family photos on this card. And it's telling me cannot read card. I popped the card out. I put it in this. I had these slots that I always wore on my person. My cards never left my person. I was a freak about it. And I said to the card, I said, I'll deal with you later, you know, and I put it in my little, okay. And I went about shooting the day. Okay. I went home. These were CF cards at the time. It wasn't SD. And I downloaded software and I ran recovery software. And thankfully I got all of the images. They were all there. Wait for it. Along with images from the prior wedding, a wedding 3 years ago, my daughter's birth. I mean, like, it was crazy what the software pulled off of there. It was crazy. I couldn't even, I mean, and I had shot multiple weddings over that card. So formatting and deleting is in the file allocation world, in the world of ones and zeros. It's just telling the camera or the computer system, this space is available. That's all it's saying. You can write over this space, but they're, you know, they could still technically be there. I believe every photographer should own some type of recovery software. Now, I know you're going to ask me what I use. And the thing is, I have this old version of photo recovery from a company called Data Rescue. It's called Photo Rescue. And you'll go to the website and it looks so janky. But the thing is, and there's millions of them out there, just go to Photo Recovery. The best thing about it is that most photo recovery softwares are free until or unless you find images and you want to recover them. And then you pay like $29 and you own the software. Like, you don't have to do that every time. Small price to pay, by the way. Small price. If you have an issue, you would pay anything. I would have paid anything to get those photos from that wedding off of there. So I ran the software and they show you a preview, like a little thumbnail. I saw all the photos and I was like, buy now, you know, and I bought it. And then I was able to recover all of those photos. So the advantage of formatting, Rebecca's asking, what is the advantage of formatting over simply deleting? Well, there's a huge advantage. When you delete photos, you can't delete hidden files. Formatting removes the hidden files that you can't see. Those are the system files that your camera and your computer write into the card that you are not seeing. You can't delete those because you can't see them. But formatting wipes them clean. Thanks, Alan. I'll see ya. Oh, Nicole, you're saying they've all gone to subscription models? The photo recovery software has? Oh, okay. I'll have to check that out. I don't know what that currently looks like. But here, I mean, the bottom line is maybe you don't need to own it right now. The bottom line is they exist and they work. That's all you need to know. So the technology is there should you require it. So in my experience, over a couple of decades, I've worked with a lot of photographers and corrupt cards. My experience has shown me that in 99.9% of the cases, the files are in fact recoverable. I only can recall one case where recovery software didn't work and we couldn't get the files. It was on a compact flash card. It was an entire wedding. This photographer was freaking out, understandably. We tried everything. She actually had to send it into a company, this guy, Ray, who is like our hero. We love Ray. He sent this compact flash, or she sent it to him. He physically, in some sort of lab, hermetically sealed, took apart the card, got the chip out of it, somehow did his magic and got all of her photos off of it. So it wasn't even a catastrophe. She was ultimately able to cost her some money. That was it. But so in that case, not a complete, I don't know that she was missing a few. I don't think she was able to get everything. Did I miss this? There was a lot of activity in the chat. I want to make sure I didn't miss any questions. Memory is cheap. Yeah, backup drives absolutely can be recovered, Alyssa. I have a video about it. Fairly recent, last year before. I will tag you in it. It's on the Flourish Academy Facebook page. It's one of the episodes because I had it happen. One of my externals went corrupt. And guess what, you guys? This is so funny. And I don't mean funny, haha. The external drive went corrupt. And I was like, oh, no big deal. I'll just restore from backup. Oh, the backup had failed. What are the chances that two things failed at once? Both things failed. I had to send in the hard drive to a company in California. I could look up who it was. Can't remember. It was a 4 terabyte hard drive, and I had to have it because it had been partially backed up. There wasn't a full backup. So I wouldn't have lost everything, but I would have lost a lot. It was about $800 to recover it. That is $800 that did not have to be spent. You know what that is? Stupid tax. And you know who paid the stupid tax? The village idiot. That's me. Because I hadn't checked my backups. Because before I knew the backup failed, this is what happened in my head. Okay, my hard drive went belly up. I was like, oh, shucks, this is going to cost me a day. Bummer. I will just get a new drive, immediately ordered a new drive, and I will restore my backup to this new drive when no big deal, right? No big deal. But I hadn't tested my backups recently, so I didn't know that it had failed and there was a problem. And that's on me. So that's why I implore you to check your backups. Okay, Chris, I see your question. You change cards, backup in multiple places, same day. I don't format until session is delivered. I format in camera. Good. I always connect my camera to the computer to upload photos. I've never in my life taken the card out and put it in the computer. Is that a bad habit? No, I don't know that that's a bad habit. I'm not a fan of plugging my camera into my computer because I have heard, it is most likely perfectly fine. But I heard one story one time about something happening to a camera because it had been connected to a computer. And I was like, I'm never doing that again. That was back in the day. And we're not in the Stone Ages anymore. So technology has advanced and it's most likely perfectly fine. I would not say that is a bad habit. I just prefer when there are issues. A couple people actually last year in the Flourish Academy were having issues getting their camera to connect to the computer, and they couldn't get their photos. And I said, why don't you go pick up a card reader real quick and just see if it works? And it did. So I thought that was interesting. And card reader's much faster. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Oh, Kim's asking how you check your backups. Kim, all it literally would have took was for me to physically, in Finder or Windows Explorer, open that hard drive and make sure the files were there. The most recent files. Okay, I shot a portrait session last week. I'm just going to make sure that got backed up.
But you also want to make sure that you can still restore them.
Yeah, well, mine are.
You want to make sure that you can copy it back to your
yes.
Because just because the file is there doesn't mean it's not correct.
Yeah, you're right. Just because you can see it doesn't mean you can get it. You're right.
So that's my own, like, 25 years in IT, and I am 100% data paranoid. And so I have stuff backed up all over the planet just because me. But I also, my spouse is like king of making sure my crap is backed up. And he also will restore stuff just to make sure, because that's awesome. You have all the backups in the world, but if you can't
That's
restore
right.
it, it's not going to do you any good.
Backups remind me of insurance. Your insurance coverage is only as good as your last catastrophe. You just
Exactly.
don't know until you go to file a claim if you have insurance for it. Yeah. The reason I say that, side note, is because I had a friend who had some gear stolen and filed a claim with her insurance. And again, it was terrible, but she thought, well, I'll just file a claim and I'll get this gear. But it wasn't covered. Her gear was not covered the way she thought it was, like in her mind, so that's pretty important. Okay. I hope that you guys found this useful. My goal is that you develop a system that works for you, that is consistent, that is easy for you to use, something that you understand and that is backed up. And if you meet those 3 criteria, I think that you will feel more confident and you'll be well on your way to worrying about something else. I hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you soon.